One Piece movies have always been a little different than the series itself, whether that be the lore they introduce, the characters they focus on, or the adventures taking place. But one stands out strikingly from the rest. It's fitting that I procrastinated until spooky season to make this video, because today I'm here to talk to you about One Piece's 6th movie, Baron Omatsuri and the Secret Island. Just like the previous two One Piece movies, Baron Omatsuri released outside of a special event, although it did keep up the tradition of a yearly March release in Japan. And only in Japan. It never received a worldwide release. Despite that, it's still a fan favorite around the world. But why is that the case? Well, to figure that out, we'll have to take a look at the movie itself. Before even delving into the plot, you'll be immediately struck by the major departure in style that Baron Omatsuri takes from the TV anime. While minor deviations from the anime have always been present in One Piece movies, none have really been to the same extent as we see here and now. The art style is a result of the director, Mamoru Hosoda. You may know him from films that he would go on to direct after Baron Omatsuri, like Wolf Children, Summer Wars, or my personal favorite of his, Bell. And if none of those ring a bell, he also directed 3 Digimon movies before leaving his mark on One Piece. Personally, I really like the art style. The simple lighting on the characters perfectly contrasts the complex painted backgrounds in a way that complements the narrative and atmosphere of the movie for reasons I'll dive into soon. This massive shift in style is also indicative of the massive shift in tone that Baron Omatsuri and the Secret Island takes in relation to its predecessor films, the anime, and the manga. Action and adventure elements are still present in the movie, but the actual genre leans much more into the thriller category, with an underlying element of darkness and mystery as the Straw Hats slowly unravel the Secret Island's island-based secrets. There's an immediate ominous atmosphere at the film's opening, just a dark screen with little noise and an open invitation for any pirate crew that considers themselves among the best to visit Omatsuri Island. A veritable paradise with everything that a resort could ever need. So of course, the Straw Hats set course, sailing through vibrant blue seas and ending up on a drab gray shore bordering a jungle. But inside that jungle lies the promised resort, and its proprietor, Baron Omatsuri. Off the bat, things are twisted from what was promised. The Straw Hats can have unlimited access to the resort if they can overcome a series of trials called the Ordeal of Hell. The first of which is goldfish catching with a paper net versus Omatsuri's crewmate Mujigoro. Mujigoro, and really everyone on the island other than Omatsuri himself, has a large mysterious sprout atop his head. Mujigoro also happens to be the world's foremost goldfish catching expert when it comes to giant goldfish that are his pet. Well, foremost other than Robin. The Straw Hats' victory is short-lived, as their attempt to leave the island only has them met with another Ordeal of Hell, the ring toss. The game is gondola-based, and only 4 Straw Hats can participate, so the 3 Devil Fruit users sit out. Chopper goes off to explore the island a little, Robin gets Mujigoro drunk to extract answers from him, and Luffy gets pelted with rocks. Chopper ends up meeting the Tea Room Pirates, a father and his 3 children who came to the island in search of a picnic spot and got caught in the Ordeal of Hell. Having failed to catch the goldfish, the 4 of them have been on the run from Baron Omatsuri and mistook Chopper for one of his men, but everyone quickly becomes friends when they realize he isn't. During the actual Ordeal of Hell, Usopp and Nami are paired up, but their boat very quickly catches fire, and an emergency kit sweeps Usopp into the air on a glider, leaving Nami alone and Usopp to catch a glimpse of a mysterious structure atop the island's mountain. Zoro and Sanji are predictably bickering the entire time, taking out all but one opponent who uses their infighting to his advantage until Usopp descends to save the day. Meanwhile, Robin has gotten Mujigoro to drink so much that he's on the verge of vomiting and asks him about any strange flowers present on the island, with Baron Omatsuri's shoulder flower having caught her attention. There's one flower unique to the island. At its highest peak grows the lily carnation. Meanwhile, Luffy is having one hell of a time chasing the guy who threw rocks at him, only to learn that he belongs to the Toothbrush Mustache Pirates and wants Luffy to join him and his resistance against Baron Omatsuri. This is where the thriller elements of the movie really kick off, as the Tea Room Pirates show Chopper an old wanted poster of the Red Arrow Pirates from years ago. Just as Chopper remarks that Baron Omatsuri is the only one who looks any different, the Baron shoots him. This is the moment in the story where the mystery really begins, so I want to discuss a few things before heading into it. To start, let's take another look at the art. Everything put to frame has a deliberate feel to it, except for the globe of the real-world Earth. Take a look at these stellar and beautifully done backgrounds. Each gives the impression that it's just real enough from a distance, but when examined closely, the brushstrokes are keenly evident. There's also a striking lack of a stationary feel. Everything shifts and changes on a whim in the lead up to the first Ordeal of Hell, and no structure is permanently in one place, giving everything an uneasy feel. The amazing contrast between the simple shading and flat colors on the characters and these highly detailed backgrounds also aids in the facade of the island. The two simply do not fit together, almost like everything was designed not just to trick the audience into thinking it was real, but also the characters. In that regard, the real-world globe might have been intentional, a subtle detail that in other contexts would be innocuous, and here serves as a hint that something lies beneath the surface. or it really was a mistake and I'm reading too far into it. The whole first act really just works to set the stage for what's to come. The underlying sense of unease has yet to fully seep in. Instead, there's just small hints towards a larger conspiracy, like the plant stems on everyone's heads and the constant misdirection that the Straw Hats are facing. The Tea Room Pirates picnic is even briefly shown in the jungle before the second ordeal of hell. But most importantly, the first act sets up the character dynamics for the rest of the movie. The father of the Tea Room Pirates is, simply put, just not that strong, and he asks Chopper to play along so his kids will stay happy. The Toothbrush Mustache Pirate is looking for new allies to go against Baron Omatsuri. Robin is aware that something is going on and trying to solve it. Zoro and Sanji are bickering more than usual after both losing in the ring toss. Nami is upset because she got tied up and hung by a rope while Usopp went off gliding, and Chopper is dead. Well, not quite yet, but we'll circle around to that again. Back in the narrative, the Straw Hats' victories are being rewarded with dinner, but everyone notices that Chopper is missing. Sanji gets upset at Omatsuri's chef receiving praise for subpar food and immediately engages him in an optional battle that he handily wins. Meanwhile, Nami is still mad at Usopp, so she goes to extract more information from Muchigoro with more alcohol. Meanwhile, Robin decides to go looking for the Lily Carnation. Meanwhile, Usopp gets annoyed that he's being ignored and wanders off too. Robin comes across a graveyard of shipwrecks, correctly deducing that the Red Arrow pirates crashed on the island. Usopp finds a Kappa kid that murders him for his hat. Nami learns that, in Muchigoro's mind, the Red Arrow pirates met Gold Roger just last week, and then Muchigoro disintegrates. Thus, the stage is set for the final ordeal of hell, one in which everyone splits up because they just can't stand each other right now. Sharpshooting. Luffy is the only one to stay behind, and has to contend with Omatsuri himself, the others running off and being beaten by the Kappa kid. Zoro actually does get some slashes in, but they're completely ineffective for mysterious reasons. Luffy ends up running away from Omatsuri's attack, a homing arrow, only being saved by the Toothbrush Mustache Pirate, whose name is Brief. You see, Brief's crewmates were fed to a monster by Baron Omatsuri, leaving only their captain alive and fighting. Back with Chopper, he and the Tea Room Pirates are at the peak of the mountain and the base of the Lily Carnation. Monstrous tendrils reach down to grab the youngest of the family, but Chopper saves her. The children try to save him in kind, but the father pulls them away, desperate to ensure his family's safety at the cost of Chopper's life. Soon we see that Chopper is actually the last of the Straw Hats, and the rest are in the process of being eaten by the flower. Muchigoro regenerates as the Lily Carnation digests our heroes. As Muchigoro wanders off, Luffy approaches Baron Omatsuri, looking for his friends, only to be met with the shocking truth. His friends have all been consumed, and what little is left of them is whittling away moment by moment. Every attack that Luffy tries to launch is met with an arrow from Omatsuri, eventually pinning him to a rock. In one final desperate attempt, he thrusts his head out, but it doesn't reach. Omatsuri gives Luffy one final offer: to live in the same misery that the Baron has endured for years, or join his crewmates in death. As Omatsuri readies his final arrow, Luffy is saved once more by Brief with important news. The youngest Tea Room Pirate can hear the Straw Hats' voices coming from the flower. They're still alive, and Luffy can save them. Luffy wastes no time. With Brief acting as a distraction, the charge to the Lily Carnation begins, until Brief gets hit by an arrow. This moment is one of the most important and pivotal in the entire film. Dare I say, a moment the entire thematic foundation sits upon. Here, Luffy is presented with a dilemma that mirrors Omatsuri's own fate. It's established by this point that Baron Omatsuri's crew all died in a storm over 20 years ago, and Omatsuri has been using the Lily Carnation's power to essentially puppet around memories of his former crewmates by feeding the flower pirate crews. He forces each crew's captain to suffer the way he did by intentionally making the ordeals of hell frustrating to do as a team, driving everyone apart to pick them off easier. Luffy ends up with two options: sacrifice Brief's life as a distraction to save his friends, a choice that mirrors Omatsuri's own path of pain, or save Brief and continue fighting like hell. If you've seen One Piece, you know what option he picks. Every time Brief has interacted with Luffy, he's done a little mustache salute that Luffy hasn't returned, and he's come to consider Luffy a true ally / friend / nakama if you're a weeb, even if Luffy hasn't fully displayed that in kind yet. But this moment, where Luffy refuses to stoop to Omatsuri's level, is marked by him returning the mustache salute, a ray of kindness in an atmosphere of darkness. And it's that kindness that gives Luffy the strength to push back Omatsuri and destroy the Lily Carnation. Only, it isn't the Lily Carnation, just a manifestation of it that dissolves into thousands of arrows, one for each day of Omatsuri's suffering. The real Lily Carnation has taken the Straw Hats to the place it's been the whole time: Omatsuri's shoulder. Luffy is beset by arrows, but there's still a chance to stop Omatsuri. The father of the Tea Room Pirates, encouraged by Daisy's kindness, grabs Omatsuri's bow and an arrow from the ground, letting it fly after a moment of hesitation, killing the Lily Carnation and instantly reverting the entirety of Omatsuri's crew to plants. Omatsuri is left alone once more, but the ghosts of his crew encourage him to let go of the past and find new friends, and Luffy straight up hits him as hard as he can. The day is saved, and everyone can finally live happily ever after. I cannot stress this enough. Go watch Baron Omatsuri and the Secret Island. The summary I just gave does not do it justice. It's something that you really just have to watch and dig into for yourself. But I watched it twice, so I've got some more digging to do. I mentioned before in the pivotal moment that the thematic throughline of the movie is solidified by those linchpin events. From a writing and thematic perspective, Baron Omatsuri is the single best villain in any One Piece movie that I've seen so far. I always have to preface so far in case something unexpectedly cool happens in a later movie, but I have a feeling that Omatsuri is always going to remain in at least the top 5. I read the central theme of the movie as being about grief and the lengths that people go to avoid moving on. Omatsuri refuses to move on from the death of his crew and forces others into the same position as himself. It's also directly stated that most captains choose to let Omatsuri finish them off over living a life without their crews, the notable exception being Brief, which I'll expand more on soon. The ordeals of hell being twisted versions of carnival games also plays into this, because I can never move on past the fact that I've just wasted $20 trying to win a giant Rastafarian banana that cost the fair 10 cents to purchase. Speaking of the ordeals of hell, I absolutely love that they're designed to be intentionally divisive for crewmates to go through together. It's not enough for Omatsuri to reanimate his crewmates using the lives of others, he wants them all to suffer. His menacing motive and showman personality combine to create an absolutely spectacular villain, especially at the end when the true form of the Lily Carnation is revealed and Omatsuri has turned into a husk of himself, fueled only by the desire to pass on the suffering he feels to others. Also, having him use a bow and arrow as a weapon is pretty cool. Luffy may be bulletproof, but the devastating way the arrows pierce his limbs fits the mood incredibly. I do also want to point out that when I've talked about previous One Piece movies, specifically Chopper's Kingdom and Cursed Holy Sword, I was turned away by the sudden introduction of a brand new power system that exists exclusively on one island and is utilized by the villains of the movie. But now that I've seen that exact same string of words played out in front of my eyes in an enjoyable way, I think that the real reason I was previously disappointed was the lack of proper build-up. Where Chopper's Kingdom and Cursed Holy Sword both introduced their respective powerful treasures as legendary myths that everyone knew about and utilized them with reckless abandon, it sucked. No ifs, ands, or buts, those two movies poorly utilized their gimmicks. But Baron Omatsuri does the exact opposite. Very few people know about the Lily Carnation, and it's treated as a very well-kept secret that even Robin, who has 20 years of espionage experience, can only extract small pieces of information about. Heck, Baron Omatsuri kills anyone who gets too close to the truth, and the only one who's seen the flower's power and can live to tell the tale is still on the island fighting against Omatsuri. Brief really is an interesting character when you think about it. In a way, he's a lot like Luffy, the bold and assertive captain of a band of pirates who does his best to protect others. But something that Brief has that even Luffy was lacking is the will to carry on after devastation. Brief lost his crew like every other captain to ever set foot on Omatsuri Island, but he does what the rest of them couldn't. He fights to carry on the memory of his crew, keeping his mustache salute and even a picture of them in his secret base. Luffy didn't even have the will to carry on fighting when he thought his crew was dead. And that, dear viewers, is what makes Baron Omatsuri and the Secret Island a good movie. Characters that serve a purpose both narratively and thematically. Brief is the shining example of the message the movie ends up sending. It's better to carry on the memory of the past forward than to let it hold you back. A sentiment even echoed by the ghosts of Omatsuri's crew in his final moments. Some random final thoughts to end the video. The Tea Room Pirates are also very important to the theme of the movie. It's implied that the mother of the family died at some point before the movie started, and the father has a ring attached to a necklace, literally carrying her memory and using that to help set an example for his children. Daisy, the youngest Tea Room Pirate, says that she can hear the voices of the Straw Hats inside the flower because she has good hearing. But it's heavily implied to be some form of the Mantra ability that was introduced in Skypiea, since some people are born being able to use it automatically. During a couple of shots, Luffy's face is drawn like the Who's from the C.G. Horton Here's a Who movie that came out 3 years after this movie did. I feel so bad for poor Muchigoro, since everyone's go-to way of extracting information is to pour champagne directly down his gullet. Omatsuri is a Japanese word for festival, so in an English context, the Straw Hats went to Festival Island, run by Lord Festival, and there were no cotton candy stands in sight. And I think that's all I have to say about Baron Omatsuri and the Secret Island. If you haven't yet, seriously, just go watch it on your own. If you're an English speaker, it might be a little tough to find since there was never an official release, but it's worth the trouble. I'd also like to extend a special thank you to everyone subscribed to my Patreon page. If it weren't for all of you, I'd probably be lying in bed still putting off actually recording this video. If you like this video and you want to see more, you can watch my other movie reviews here in this playlist, or you can see all my One Piece videos bundled together in one place right here. Thank you for watching, and I hope you stick around for next time I cover one of these movies when I take a look at the giant mechanical soldier of Karakuri Castle.